Hello and welcome to Dan Explains. My name is Dan. Many people of faith are turned off by science because they think there are contradictions between the biblical narrative, especially in the book of Genesis, and what scientists have to say about how everything got here. This is especially difficult for the biblical literalists, who believe everything in the Bible is literal history unless it's explicitly stated otherwise. Well, it's possible for both scientists and biblical literalists to both be correct. Let me explain why. First off, this video relies on concepts from my series of videos on physics, and I've collected them in a playlist. So, unless you already have a good grasp of quantum entanglement and the quantum eraser experiment, please go and watch that playlist if you haven't. It might actually be good to go and watch them as a refresher anyway if you haven't watched those videos in a while, which you probably haven't. Link in the description. I'll give a good quick recap on the important points. The first important point is that two physical spaces that have absolutely no information transfer between them are what's called causally disconnected. Even if the two spaces were once physically connected, the more events that happen at random at a quantum level, the more the two places enter into what's called a superposition relative to each other. A superposition is basically when something is in multiple states at the same time. Quantum computers rely on quantum superpositions and quantum entanglement heavily. Quantum entanglement is where two objects' superpositions potentially occupy the same space, which can be divided and separated by any distance. The second idea that's important is what's pointed out in my quantum eraser video. It's possible when collapsing a superposition, which means to look at the thing and figure out what state it's currently in, to affect its state, even if that means helping determine things that happened in the past. The upshot is you get to decide the outcome of a certain unknown event that happened in the past. All these effects have been experimentally tested, although there is some debate in the physics community what the tests actually prove. So what does quantum physics have to do with the Bible being right or wrong? Keep in mind, what I'm about to propose is conjecture, but interesting nonetheless. For this video, I'm going to speak mostly about the book of Genesis, specifically early Genesis and the creation narrative. I will cover other periods in the Bible in other videos, and reference back to this one if necessary. Maybe I'll even make a playlist. Biblical literalists really struggle to explain why the biblical creation narrative doesn't appear to fit with what scientists say is history. Before I go on, I'd like to point out that I'm not a biblical literalist. I think there are certainly tales, especially in the Old Testament, where the authors were trying to make a certain point. But most people who aren't biblical scholars with a good knowledge of ancient language and culture can't pick up on the context of it. And no, I'm not implying I'm some kind of biblical scholar. My area of expertise is science, specifically molecular biology. You'll want to watch my 22nd and 25th videos that talk about the events in Genesis. Links in the description, of course. So, back to the question. In my 25th video on original sin, I point out that the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil represent a choice that Adam and Eve had. In Genesis 3:16 to 19, we can see the effect their choice had on themselves and the world as well. You can go ahead and read the passage, but the upshot is women will bear children with more pain, that is, it will be more painful, and men will have to work hard to till the ground. It's also known that human death entered into the world because of their choice. God then kicks them out of the garden, never to return. If science is to be believed, and as I pointed out in my 22nd video, Genesis 1 may actually match creation as understood by science. Then, that would mean the world and all the animals and the soil would already exist at the point God kicked Adam and Eve out of the garden. One popular theory for creationists was that God created the world already in progress, to borrow a phrase, but people seem to forget God is infinite in every way and exists outside of time. It's really hard for us to get our brains outside of their temporal boxes. But what if the Garden of Eden was like Schrodinger's box? If God put Adam and Eve in the box, then for Adam and Eve, the rest of the universe would be in all the possible states at once. It would be like God created the universe and Schrodinger's box and never opened the box. Then Adam and Eve were created inside the box. Basically, the Garden of Eden would have been like an island universe. Relative to Adam and Eve, the entire universe outside the box would be in a quantum superposition of all possible histories, all of which at that point would exist. Now, let's suppose Adam and Eve had an effect on the universe in a similar way the delayed choice quantum eraser experiment allows someone in the present to pick the outcome of an event in the past. The particular choice I'm talking about here is, of course, eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil instead of the tree of life. Then, when the box was opened and Adam and Eve came out, the state of the universe would collapse from all the possible histories to just one. In our case, the one that led to death and hardship for all mankind. God really wouldn't even have to work a miracle, besides creating the universe itself and making the Garden of Eden like Schrodinger's box until Adam and Eve made their choice. It also avoids the issue of God creating an imperfect universe affected by sin, since a physical mechanism exists whereby Adam and Eve's sin could have affected the outcome of past events. God created a universe that could have been anything for us. We chose sin, and the history that necessitated our sinful nature became the real one because of our sin. There's another way to look at this. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. Up until the point Adam and Eve made their choice, the past was just as unknown as the future. Something that lends a little credence to this idea is that when God kicks Adam and Eve out of the garden in Genesis 3:22-24, preventing them from eating from the tree of life is given as one of the reasons. That means there are additional actions Adam and Eve could have taken that may have further affected the history of the universe at large. The upshot here is that creationists and non-creationists both get to have their cake and eat it too. God could have popped everything into existence as described in the Bible, but the history that led to it was not determined until Adam and Eve made their choice. That would mean that most of the things scientists say happened, including evolution, probably did. There is still the question of the Great Flood, which seems to kind of make the whole thing moot, but that's a story for another video. If you like this video, please press the like button, subscribe to my channel, and ding the bell to get notified when I post new videos. Also, please support me on Patreon, link in the description. The more people support me, the more time I can dedicate to making videos like this one. So until next time, have a great week.